Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today's video gonna be in a different style. It's gonna be more talking and explaining, and there will be an actual test and repair by the end of the video. So stay tuned. As you can tell from the title of the video, we will be discussing long crank times when the car is hot. Hot meaning it's been driven recently. You had it shut down for anywhere between 10 minutes to a few hours. You try to start it and it just takes forever to start. It may start and fail quickly, and it may run rough for a few seconds as well. The first thing you want to do on any start issue is to confirm fuel, spark, and engine mechanicals. Let's focus on what's relative to us in this case. Let's start by a process of elimination. Can we rule out an engine mechanical issues, compression or timing? Yes, as the car would run normal on cold starts. Of course, if your car takes longer times on colder starts, then engine mechanical issues will be in the top of our suspect list. If your engine sounds healthy, and I'm sorry I can't teach you how a healthy engine sounds like, you have to establish a hearing exercise for it. Then we can eliminate any intake, exhaust, or throttle body issues. The next step I would take is scan the car for codes. But what I'm gonna show you, which is a common Saab failed part, will not cause you any codes or check engine lights. So assuming we did that and found no codes, what do you think it's easier to do next? I like to start with ignition or spark confirmation. Pull one of the coils, attach a spark plug to its end, lay it down on the engine away from any fuel components or wiring harnesses. Make sure the spark plug touches any grounded part of the engine, crank the engine and monitor if you have spark. Of course, you want to do the test with the same conditions at which the engine would not start, thus being hot. Putting the engine in the same conditions of long start actually misled me in this diagnosis. We will talk about it later. If you have a spark, then we know two things are checked out. Ignition system is okay, and the engine ECU is receiving signal from the crank sensor. Some will argue about monitoring the tach while cranking. I take it as an acceptable test, but it's not foolproof. Next we come to fuel, and that's our main concern today. To confirm fuel, we need a fuel pressure gauge. Attach it to the fuel pressure port, turn the ignition on, and read the fuel pressure. It should be around 3 bars or 43 psi. But wait, the car starts okay when cold, where fuel is mostly needed. So what could happen on hot starts? You will see in the video that when I turn the ignition on, the system is primed quickly, and it's a kind of holding pressure, so fuel shortage is not our concern. I went one step where I attached the fuel pressure gauge on a hot engine, primed the system, then removed the fuel pump relay and tried to start the engine. I watched the fuel pressure drop, meaning injectors are fine. I even did a fuel pressure leak down test on a hot engine, which why I failed doing a quick diagnosis. The specs are minimum 33 psi after 20 minutes of turning the fuel pump off. And this is where I decided to go to the basics, do all the testing on a cold engine and compare the results. And that's when I saw something that triggered all the experience. When I did the fuel pressure leak down test on a hot engine, it passed with flying colors. But when I did it on a cold engine, it failed miserably. So how come we don't have a leak on a hot engine? We actually have. But due to the heat, fuel is boiling in the fuel rail and pipes, causing the pressure to stay high. But that's not a problem by itself. As we will see, the fuel system can be primed quickly. The problem is where the fuel is leaking. And now we come to the main cause of hot restart issues. It is actually fuel leaking into the intake system, causing a flooded engine. The fuel leak could come from two sources, and I've seen both, a leaky injectors or a leaking fuel pressure regulator, which you're gonna see in this video. To check the fuel injectors for leaks, you have to pull the fuel rail and prime the system and wait. I'll be doing a video in the future for how to pull the fuel rail. A leaking fuel pressure regulator can be internal or external. Internal meaning it will leak fuel into the return side of the system, which you can easily confirm with a fuel pressure gauge. And the leak has to be severe to cause a no start or long start, which we don't have today. External leak, where it will leak through the diaphragm into the vacuum hose to the intake system. In the background, I included important info about the starting strategy of the ECU and the fuel system specs. Let's now look at the diagnosis and repair. Enjoy the video. Here I'm doing a fuel pressure leak down test on a cold engine. I primed the system twice by turning the ignition to the on position for a few seconds and then started the timer. The specs are minimum 33 psi after 20 minutes. You can see we are already at the minimum specs after less than 3 minutes. And after 20 minutes we are less than 20 psi. I decided next to pull the vacuum hose going to the fuel pressure regulator. There shouldn't be any fuel here. It should be completely dry, which isn't. If it was dry, then I would have to pull the fuel injectors and inspect them. Replacing the regulator is easy. If you want to bleed the fuel pressure, use the test port to do so, or pull fuse 2 from the small main fuse box in front of the battery while the car is running. There is one clip holding the regulator in its place. Pull it back, then pull the regulator. A decent amount of fuel will leak from the fuel rail. There's a small black O-ring at the tip of the regulator. It usually stays inside the fuel rail. Make sure it's not dislocated, and I prefer to change it, but the new one came with it missing. So I'll check the old one and leave it alone. Clean the fuel rail opening, then lubricate the O-rings and the new regulator using a silicone grease and push it in. Now insert the clip while pushing the regulator firmly. After you inspect everything, turn the ignition on for a few seconds multiple times and check for fuel leaks. Wait few minutes before you conclude your check. Then install the vacuum hose, start the car and check for leaks again. Thank you boys and girls for watching, and remember, if you are not a subscriber, consider subscribing. Bye bye!